ability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Pat Connolly, and for the next hour I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. From the Tuesday, April 28th issue of the Union-Sun Journal, resurfacing work on Transit Road due to start. Expected to be finished by end of year, Robinson Road project information session on Wednesday by Robert Creeman. The State Department of Transportation is set to start work this week on its South Transit Road Rehabilitation Project in Lockport. The $8.92 million 4.5-mile project will cover South Transit Road from the Lockport South City line to the Niagara County line. Work will include a complete milling and resurfacing of the road, installing new pavement markings, replacing corridor signs, and repairing and replacing drainage structures. For pedestrians, the sidewalk in front of Lockport's Children's Memorial Park between Lincoln Avenue and Lincoln Drive would be reconstructed with a new ADA-compliant curb ramp. The culvert replacements and milling and pavement work will happen during the night, with two-way traffic to be maintained at all times. Work is expected to be finished by the end of the year. May Day rally on Friday. Stand Up Lockport, organizing local workers over billionaires. Stand Up Lockport, organizing local workers over billionaires protest. Joyce Miles. Stand Up Lockport is hosting a May Day rally at 11 a.m. Friday, May 1st, in front of the closed Big Lots store on South Transit Road. Indivisible, the nationwide network of local political action groups behind the No Kings protest movement, launched the May 1st National Day of Action to protest low wages, high prices, overtaxation, and war. Its messaging includes the lines, "Workers over billionaires. Expand democracy, not corporate power. No ICE," as in ICE, and "No work, no school, no shopping." For affiliates of Stand Up Lockport, coordinator Monica Clifford said, the local rally is also a venue for speaking out against giant AI, artificial intelligence, data centers like the ones proposed in the towns of Alabama in Genesee County and Tonawanda in Erie County. "It's another chance to make our voices heard," she said. Asked whether Stand Up Lockport is endorsing the message about no work, no school, no shopping on Friday, Clifford said the nonpartisan citizens group is not inviting anyone to skip work or school, but is asking people to refrain from shopping at the so-called big box stores and spend their money with small local businesses instead. May 1st is known by the labor movement as International Workers' Day, an occasion to celebrate laborers and the working class. May Day Strong, a national coalition of more than 500 labor unions, community organizations, pro-democracy, immigrant rights, and racial justice groups, stated in a Monday news release that approximately 3,000 May Day rallies are scheduled around the country. The digital platform The digital platform, this is the name of this is the URL. The digital platform mobilize.us shows that, in addition to Lockport, registered rally sites in the region include Buffalo, Batavia, and Rochester. Stand Up Lockport's May Day rally has the same general rules as a No Kings rally. Be civil. Leave your weapons at home. Keep your protest signs G-rated. And in this case, don't park your vehicle in front of the nearby Lockport Outdoor Store. Also, Clifford said, Stand Up will collect non-perishable food items for distribution to local pantries. To register for the rally, find and click on Stand Up Lockport's event on the May Day Strong map at mobilize.us. Iroquois refuge eaglet growing stronger. Chicks' flight feathers are beginning to emerge. The baby eaglet that's in focus at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge is now over 2 weeks old, is getting a lot bigger, and is entertaining nest cam watchers with its antics. The eaglet is in a nest that belongs to one of several nesting pairs of bald eagles at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge on the border of Genesee and Orleans counties. The nest camera was put in place and is maintained by Friends of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge with the help of Pixcams Inc., Treeman Tom, and others. The chick is standing upright more often and using its wings to move itself around and balance. It's much more aware of its surroundings and now reliably tracks the parents' movements, approaches them for food, and grabs it from them directly instead of waiting for them to place food in its mouth. It is taking much bigger bites of food, most often fish, including a lot of carp, and eating larger, less frequent meals, separated by hours-long food comas! Exclamation point. You can usually see its visibly full crop. The eaglet's first wispy white down is being replaced by a more insulated gray thermal down so it can thermoregulate better and no longer needs to be incubated as intensively. You can sometimes see the father eagle, especially since he's the smaller parent, struggling to stuff the chick under him to brood. The chick is also doing some practice preening as its new feathers come in. On these warmer days, the parents have been leaving the chick alone in the nest for longer periods of time. When they aren't on the nest, at least one of them is usually on guard nearby. If viewers are seeing the parents gone for longer now, this is normal. The chick is much more independent, and the adults are still out there guarding against predators and intruders. The chick's antics have included a Lady and the Tramp moment, when the mother eagle had one end of a string of duck intestine and the chick had the other. To see moments like these, tune in to the nest cam streaming through the link at, all caps, finwr.org. Again, that's in all capital letters, finwr.org. A quick recap for those who may not have been following along. Our eagle parents laid 3 eggs at the end of February and they hatched the first week of April. Unfortunately, 2 of the chicks died due to accidents in the nest, but that has left the middle chick, the one that survived, as the sole focus of mother and father and, without any competition, the recipient of an enormous amount of fish bits. The chick's flight feathers are beginning to emerge. In the next few weeks, it will develop more substantial feather growth on its head and back and will take on more of an awkward teenager look, and the parents will spend even less time brooding. Around 5 to 6 weeks, the chick will start to stand more steadily and will begin wing flapping in earnest. At 6 to 8 weeks, the eaglet will get very large, almost adult-sized. What does this say? At 8 to 10 weeks, the end of May and beginning of June, it should be feathered enough to look like a dark juvenile bald eagle, and its first few unsteady flights might begin by mid-June. The typical fledgling window is 10 to 12 weeks after hatching. Even 4 to 6 weeks after fledging, roughly mid-July, the eaglet will still be dependent on its parents for food and flight training. If all goes well, by late summer or early fall, the chick will be a full juvenile and out on its own, but it won't develop its white head and tail feathers until it's 4 to 5 years old. Credits for this story. This article was a collaboration of Friends of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge members Richard Moss, Emma DeLeon, Amy Merritt, and Garner Light. If you have a bald eagle question for the team, send it to Richard Moss at heron@finwr.org, and we may answer it in a future release. That address again is heron, like the bird, HERON, at, here it was lowercase, finwr.org. About a local restaurant, Coban's 2.0 looking to put new spin on old restaurant. Closed after 42 years in business, eatery expected to open soon, by Robert Creenan. And I don't know whether to say Coban's or Cobans. I'll say Coban's. Niagara Falls. Glenn Garrow has faint memories of dining at Coban's restaurant on Niagara Street, but remembers that everyone in the neighborhood enjoyed the community staple. Quoting, "It was phenomenal food," Garrow said, with the local spot known for its pierogies and other Polish offerings from longtime owner Marcia Front. Now, 10 years after moving back to Niagara Falls from Florida to take care of his mother, he and his wife, Tracy, plan on reopening the old restaurant, soon to be called Coban's 2.0. The original closed back in July 2022 after 42 years in business. This would be the first restaurant venture for Garrow and his family, having worked on interior renovations since October when they bought the building. The 110-person capacity restaurant would have 2 dining areas on the main floor with a bar and a banquet room upstairs. Also working as a Niagara Falls Housing Authority foreman, Garrow said his family lived in Florida for 30 years, where he worked in car and towing businesses. He had worked in Dell's Inn on Pine Avenue, which his aunt and uncle operated, as well as at Carborundum and DuPont. They moved after Tracy lost her programmer job at Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center, and he could not get into DuPont's workers' union. After Glenn and Tracy sold their Florida business and moved back to Niagara Falls in 2016, their daughter moved up too, bringing 3 grandkids. Since she did not want to stay in Florida, they decided to stay full-time as well. The family is now focused on the future of Coban's 2.0. While the planned food offerings of Polish and Italian food with some steak are similar to what the old restaurant offered, Garrow stresses the new restaurant will have no connection with the old owners. The 2.0 was added to the name so they can take it to the next level. Quoting, "We're trying to bring back some part of that legacy to the city," Garrow said. He does plan to bring some of Florida into the restaurant with frozen drinks and a bottom-up beer dispenser that can fill glasses from the bottom. The opening is not set yet, since they have to wait for city inspection and liquor license approval. They're currently hiring for all positions such as cooks, waitstaff, bartenders, and dishwashers. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Here is an opinion article from the editors of the Union-Sun Journal from the April 29th, Wednesday, April 29th issue on the opinion page. Questioning the Niagara Falls visitor count. Count us among those wondering just how many visitors actually come to Niagara Falls State Park every year. According to estimates from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, more than 9 million people visit the American side of the falls each year. In 2024, estimates from Governor Kathy Hochul's office pegged the number at 9.5 million. Even accounting for seasonal spikes and brief visits, the state's estimates suggest a level of daily volume that should be far more visible downtown. Simple math breaks 9 million visitors down to 24,658 people a day. We can't say we've seen those kinds of numbers on most summer days in downtown Niagara Falls. Neither have members of the Downtown Niagara Falls Business Association, who are questioning the state's numbers, its methods for counting visitors, and how those counts translate into what's been a consistent message. Tourism in Niagara Falls, USA is flourishing, with 9 million coming to see the natural wonder each year. Galen Bailey, owner of Sight C Rentals and the Daredevil Museum on 3rd Street, said to get a good idea of the state's estimate for visitors, think Highmark Stadium. There would be, quoting, "There would be like a Bills game down here every day in the summer," he said of the state's numbers. There's not enough hotel rooms, parking spaces, bathrooms, food places to even cater to 70,000 people per day. I wish that the numbers were accurate. I wish 9.5 million people came here every year, but it's not a realistic number at all. Adds Business Association President Sean Weber, quoting, "If we get this many people and the city is in this rough a condition, what's wrong and what happened?" End quote. State officials stick by their numbers but say there are many unknowns when it comes to getting an accurate count. State Parks, in a statement issued by spokesperson Angelo Berti, noted that there is no gate to get into Niagara Falls State Park, which is open 24 hours a day. She acknowledged that because the state park is free to enter anytime and there are many ways to enter the park, it's very difficult to capture accurate attendance numbers. Officials also track visitors to Niagara Falls State Park using parking, which is based on 842 paid spots, the number of attraction tickets sold, and counts conducted by staff. What about hotel stays? There are 2,400 hotel rooms in Niagara Falls, according to Destination Niagara, USA. We agree with the members of the Downtown Niagara Falls Business Association. It's time to update methods for determining the number of visitors. Weber suggests focusing on tangible indicators like paid trips on the Maid of the Mist or food sales at the Top of the Falls restaurant to offer a more accurate depiction of the true condition of the local tourism market each year. For instance, ridership numbers obtained by the Falls Business Association show 1.5 million people take the Maid of the Mist boat ride each year. Are the vast majority of visitors skipping the iconic boat ride? That seems unlikely. Weber also suggests having an outside firm look at local visitation and forming a task force made up of experts, including those from the business community, to develop a strategy for improving the tracking of Falls visitors. We all know Niagara Falls State Park sees millions of visitors a year, but is it 9 million? We, like the Downtown Niagara Falls Business Association, think the benefits would be much more apparent, with thriving businesses, full hotels, and downtown streets filled with visitors. Local businesses, policymakers, and the public deserve a clearer picture, which starts with better data and willingness to question numbers that don't seem to add up. Again, this was an opinion article by the editors of the Union-Sun Journal, and it appeared in the Wednesday, April 29th issue of that paper. From the Thursday, April 30th issue of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal, battery limits eyed in Wilson. Village Board to vote on local law limiting sites for storage systems. Robert Creenan. Wilson, Town of Wilson, Village of Wilson. Wilson is set to vote on a new local law limiting where certain battery energy storage systems can operate in the village. The law would limit Tier 2 battery storage systems in industrial zoned areas, which for the village would be its southern parcels. Tier 1 storage systems, which can store up to 600 kilowatt hours, are allowed in all areas of the village, given their usage for rooftop solar systems. The language is based on the model law for battery storage that NYSERDA, New York State, I don't know. So the language is based on the model law for battery storage that NYSERDA released, with Village Mayor Gregory Marin stating it is very similar to the Village of Lancaster's law. Wilson had passed a moratorium in October 2024 on processing any permit applications for large-scale battery energy storage system installation associated with renewable energy projects. Since then, the Village Board has passed regulations for solar energy systems and extended its battery storage moratorium by 6 months as they drafted the final regulation. Quoting, "We don't see this being a prime location for anyone trying anything," Martin said, noting they have not had any applicants for such systems. Continuing the quote, "But it's important to have something on the books in case someone came forward." The Niagara County Planning Board gave its support to this law at its April meeting, with the Village Board planning to vote on the law at its May 21st meeting. Wilson is among many Niagara County municipalities looking to establish such regulations, with others including Cambria, Newfane, Pendleton, and Porter. And the mayor is, I don't know which is correct, Marin or Martin. Both were in the article. Probably Martin. Still from the Thursday, April 30th issue of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal, casting off. New York's cool water sport fishing season opens up on Friday. Staff reports. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has set Friday as the season opener for walleye, northern pike, tiger muskellunge, and pickerel fishing across the state. Quoting, "We are so fortunate to live in a state where there are fishing opportunities all around us," Jacqueline Lindrum, director of DEC's Division of Fish and Wildlife, said. Continuing the quote, "For anglers interested in taking their proficiency to the next level, fishing for walleye, pike, and pickerel can offer a fun challenge." Walleye have a well-deserved reputation as one of New York's most prized and tastiest game fish. They are often considered one of the more challenging fish to catch, but understanding when and where to find them and how they behave can go a long way towards putting fish in the boat. Walleye are found in more than 140 waters throughout the state, so anglers don't have to go far to pursue this popular game fish, sport fish. Excellent walleye fishing is available in Chautauqua Lake and Lake Erie in western New York. Other reliable fishing locations for walleye are available on DEC's website. I'll abbreviate that article there. If you would like to hear the rest of it, please call Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 716-821-5555, and staff will read the remainder of the article from the Thursday, April 30th front page to you. money for home improvement. Lockport, North Tonawanda homeowners eligible for home improvement grants. Applications now being taken for new Niagara County program. Homeowners in North Tonawanda and the city of Lockport are now eligible for home repair grants through a new Niagara County program funded by the New York State Land Bank Initiative and administered by the Niagara-Orleans Regional Land Improvement Corporation, NORLIC. The goal of the home improvement program is to help middle-income families make critical repairs to their homes, thereby ensuring neighborhood stability and preventing neglect. Eligibility for the program is based on household income up to 120% of area median income, which is about $120,000 for a family of four in Niagara County. Eligible home improvements could include roof and gutter replacement, chimney repair, window replacement, furnace replacement, air conditioning replacement, electrical service upgrades. The maximum grant through the home improvement program is $20,000. As a reimbursement-based grant program, homeowners are responsible for paying up front for all approved work and will be reimbursed after completion, subject to program requirements. Quoting, "We are excited New York State is funding this pilot program in North Tonawanda and the city of Lockport as part of the county's strategy to promote neighborhood revitalization," said legislator Rich Andres, who chairs the county's Economic Development Committee. "Our hope is that this pilot program achieves our goals and we can return to the state for additional funding to expand it to other areas of the county in coming years." End quote. Applications for the program must be received no later than May 29th. Applications submitted without all required supporting documentation will be considered incomplete. Funds are limited, so applications will be reviewed in the order that they are received. An informational webinar will be held at 1 p.m. on Monday and will be recorded for later viewing for those unable to participate. For a full list of program guidelines and eligibility criteria to register for the webinar and to download a program application, visit the Niagara-Orleans Regional Land Improvement Corporation website at, and this is going to take some reading, I will read it twice, at https://niagaraorleanslandbank.com/home_improvement.html. Again, https:// these are forward slashes. Okay, all one word, niagaraorleanslandbank.com. So Niagara-Orleans Land Bank was all one word, then .com/home_improvement.html. Still from the Thursday, April 30th issue of the Union-Sun Journal, fire engulfs vacant Niagara Falls apartment building. Niagara Falls fire investigators are working to determine the cause of an early Wednesday morning fire in the 600 block of 20th Street in Niagara Falls. Just before 3 a.m., Niagara Falls firefighters, along with police and EMS, responded to reports of a possible structure fire and found heavy smoke and fire coming from a residential apartment building at 643 20th Street. The primary structure was reported to be vacant. Residents in neighboring homes at 645 and 637 20th Street were able to evacuate safely. Heavy fire eventually engulfed the attic and roof, which later collapsed. Firefighters initially began an interior attack while working to protect the adjacent structures. However, conditions worsened rapidly, and fire crews were ordered to transition to defensive operations commonly referred to as surround and drown. Firefighters battled the blaze for nearly 3 hours using 2 aerial master streams and multiple hand lines before bringing the fire under control. Emergency crews cleared the scene right around 6 a.m. Now from the front page of the Friday, May 1st issue of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal, Push to Restore Funding. Ort, Bologna, Press State for Help with Family Opportunity Center by Joyce Miles. Eastern Niagara County state legislators are calling on New York state leadership to find $300,000 to keep the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center open. On Thursday, the day its funding from the Office of Children and Family Services was cut off, State Senator Rob Ort and Assemblymember Paul Bologna issued a joint statement urging the state's Democratic leadership to include funding for the center somewhere in the still tentative state budget for fiscal year 2026-27. The statement follows letters sent by Ort and Bologna to OCFS Commissioner Danya Harris-Madden in mid-March asking for, quoting, temporary bridge support or other funding solutions, end quote, that would allow EPIC, which is Every Person Influences Children, to continue operating the center past April 30th. The state's response, according to Ort, was, "We don't have any money." I find it hard to believe that in a $263 billion budget, we cannot make room for vulnerable New York families and children in need, Ort said. Albany Democrats and the governor have gone out of their way to raise taxes and fund illegal immigrants and many social programs that downstate constituents rely on. EPIC and programs that empower parents and strengthen families should remain a priority. Continuing the quotation, "There's no excuse for turning our backs on programs that strengthen families and prevent crises," Bologna said. The Niagara County Family Opportunity Center at City Center, 175 Walnut Street, Lockport, opened in 2023 as a staffed drop-in center offering parenting workshops, open play space, and bonding activities, supplemental resources, and an informal child care supply trading post for all families in the county, all free of charge. EPIC, the nonprofit whose aim is to prevent child abuse and neglect through parenting education and family programming, has operated the center as a walk-in prevention hub, removing financial and referral barriers that often prevent families from accessing early support. That was a quotation, but I don't know who it's quoting. It doesn't say. Perhaps it's an EPIC document. Among the 400-plus families that consumed one or more programs or services through the center in the past, 92% disclosed at least one risk factor for child abuse or neglect, according to Center Director Ashley Green. Spectrum News 1 reported in March that OCFS-funded family opportunity centers across New York would lose their state funding due to the expiration of a multi-year allocation under the American Rescue Plan Act. Tara Burgess, the director of EPIC, said the state agency announced late last year that it would revert to the Family Resource Center model of community support, which provides emergency financial assistance to client families. 34 organizations across the state, including EPIC, submitted proposals to operate a family resource center, and only 8 were selected, 1 per region. The Family Resource Center for the Western New York region is located in Buffalo, Burgess said. Ort's March letter to the OCFS commissioner relayed some statistics about the families who have been served by the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center. 87% are low income, 13% are living paycheck to paycheck, 30% include a child with a disability, to underscore the center's value as preventive infrastructure. Quoting, "These are working families navigating rising costs, limited child care access, and increasing economic pressure," Ort wrote. When families receive early support, it reduces the likelihood that challenges escalate into situations requiring far more costly intervention through the child welfare system and other publicly funded programs. End quote. Ort is still writing letters and talking with people behind the scenes to try to secure the funding that EPIC needs to keep operating the Family Opportunities Center, his Director of Communications, Matthew Mosher, said, quoting, "But at the end of the day, the governor is the one who decides where the money goes, and you can't make her do anything," he said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. More restaurant news. Lobster rolls land in Lewiston thanks to Olcott Lobster Company. Eatery opens new location on Center Street. Robert Creenan. After a successful first season in Olcott, the Olcott Lobster Company is bringing its lobster rolls and New England-style seafood to the village of Lewiston with a new location at the Stonehouse Restaurant. The new Center Street location officially opens on Friday after a ceremonial ribbon cutting took place this past Wednesday afternoon. The new eatery will be open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. today, which was Friday, May 1st. "Everybody has been so gracious," said owner Michelle Pazantides, who started this business with her brother, Kevin Tomasula. "It's been fantastic. I couldn't ask for any better." The lobster restaurant first opened this past June at 5860 Main Street in Olcott, which had previously housed DW's Juicy Clam Shack. Pazantides had previously told the Gazette their first season brought in customers from all over Western New York and other parts of the world. The core menu of lobster rolls, sandwiches, and soups will be the same, with the large kitchen space enabling more options like clams, oysters, and lobster mac and cheese. All the seafood used at both locations comes from the New England region. Pazantides will be leasing the space for now, possibly looking to buy it in the future from the owner, Emery Simon. Michelle is not the only member of her family setting up shop in Lewiston. Her daughter Angela, who worked as a Stonehouse bartender, opened up Stoned House right behind the restaurant this past February as the village's first cannabis dispensary. Olcott Lobster Company's regular hours are 3 to 10 p.m. on Mondays and Tuesdays, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays. The kitchen always closes 1 hour before the rest of the restaurant closes. Like in Olcott, the Lewiston location's main lobster roll season will end in October. The space will still be available for private parties, Bills games, and other events during the winter. Already they are planning special events for this weekend's Kentucky Derby and Cinco de Mayo next week. "I'm looking forward to a fantastic season," Pazantides said. Here's a little human interest story that involves trees from the Friday, May 1st issue. Exploring the Niagara Frontier, losing the stories in the bark. The Erie Canal towpath, this is by Bob Confer. The Erie Canal towpath was once the interstate for itinerant workers, hobos if you will, who traveled from town to town in search of their next farming or handyman gig. While doing so, they frequently stopped over on my family's farm. That would be the farm of Bob Confer. It was an attractive spot to set up camp because Because of the fresh water they could drink from a brook that runs through our woods, the same brook from which they ignited bubbling gas for cooking. There's a good reason the community is called Gasport. While there, they often killed time by carving their names and other things in the bark of the beech trees that were common in our woods. The smooth gray bark, so easy to cut with a pocket knife, has always been inviting to amateur artisans, not to mention young lovers who wanted their names forever inscribed in Mother Nature for all the world to see. The hobos, the romantics, and anyone else interested in making a statement left their calling cards on the beeches. Beeches, the tree, beech trees. Old-fashioned graffiti that remains to this day. These trees tell stories. On the trees that were cut when they were mature and thus slower to grow, I can still make out dates from the early 1930s. Some of the handiwork, less legible as the tree grew, obviously came from much earlier times. There are names. Some of them belonged to the hobos, while others I recognize as locals who probably carved the tree when they were in their teens and 20s. Now they're in their 70s and 80s, and their arboreal artwork has aged less dramatically than they. One of our beeches has neatly cut into its bark 2 words, Ray Confer. My grandfather did that when he purchased the farm in 1955 at 33 years of age. He has since passed, so that tree has always offered a comforting portal to a time gone by. Sadly, all of these trees will quite soon no longer be able to tell their stories. About 18 years ago, beech bark disease reared its ugly head in western New York. About 18 years ago, beech bark disease reared its ugly head in western New York in volume, bringing with it its deadly 1-2 punch. First, an insect, an invasive species no less, attacks the bark. Then, the wounds left by the insects are infiltrated by a fungus. It doesn't take long for the once beautiful bark to crack, then fracture completely, falling off the tree. The malnourished beech dies 3 to 6 years after its first symptoms. The disease has taken its toll on local forests, wiping out one of our most abundant trees, our best storytellers, and with its beech nuts, an important provider of nourishment to wildlife. Every year, more of them topple within woodlots across the region, leaving behind small saplings that sprout off the roots but will never reach an appreciable height or fruit-bearing maturity. It's disheartening to think that trees that should have outlived me won't, taking with them the interesting connections I have to my family and the dozens of hardworking men who made their way across the region in hopes of overcoming the economic realities of their time. Not one to let memories, better yet history, die so pitifully over the past few years, I have taken photographs of the various trees and their carvings that remain. If you have a stand of beeches, especially one along the Erie Canal towpath or a rail line, you should take the time to do so too, to familiarize yourself with the people who once called your fair community home, be it for years or just a few nights. By capturing the images on film, we can maintain the carvings for the ages, just as their artists had intended. And a note at the bottom is that longtime Lockport Journal contributing writer Bob Confer resides in Gasport. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And turning now to the Saturday and Sunday issue, May 2nd and 3rd, organizers call off this year's Lockport Food Fest. Say several factors led to decision to cancel. The annual Lockport Food Fest has been called off this year due to a variety of challenges. Grace Platt, program manager for Lockport Main Street, the city's tourism and event marketing branch, said Friday that the cost of the event, along with reluctance from restaurants and consumers being cautious about spending contributed to the decision. Quoting, "That event is literally the most expensive and it's very labor intensive," she said. "Every year we break even on that event. It's more about highlighting our restaurants and giving them a platform. Looking at our year and having to shift to focus on fundraising, it was just not possible." End quote. The annual Lockport Food Fest is the successor to the Taste of Lockport, which ended in 2019. Platt said, "The restaurant owners expressed concerns about added labor and food costs because they operate both a festival booth and their brick-and-mortar locations that day. It's been quoting, "It's been a huge undertaking for restaurants that participate," Platt said. Food establishments expressed concerns about the risk of participating when there would be low attendance due to weather or the economy, she said. Lockport Main Street also considered the staff time involved in managing the event. Quoting again, "We're making sure we're allocating our staff time to building a stronger, more sustainable organization," Platt said. "We're building a foundation where we try not to have to rely on fundraising year after year to make ends meet. We want to find something that is stable. We really have to balance and do the best we can with what we've got. I do want to bring it back over and over again." End quote, end article. About Harrison Place. Making it work, Harrison Place Business Incubator hosting open house on Wednesday. Operating his own business at the Harrison Place Incubator has allowed Scott Bruning, owner of Bruno Manufacturing, to reinvent his life. Bruning had years of experience in the pipe insulation industry as a manufacturer's sales representative. "I traveled every week and had no family time," he said. After some changes in the industry, Bruning started to receive calls from clients looking for a new dealer. It prompted Bruning and a former co-worker to develop their own line of insulation jackets for heavy-duty valves and pumps. "I didn't know how to make the product," he said. "We had to reverse engineer it. We worked full-time jobs and worked at it nights in our garage." Eventually, Bruning had to reckon with the technicalities of sewing the thick insulation, so he called his mother. "My mom's a lifetime sewer," he said. "We had to call her in to help us. She still comes in." Now, Bruning works in a second-floor shop facing Walnut Street with his daughter, Olivia, who is his full-time lead fabricator. His job provides plenty of family time. On Wednesday, from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m., the Harrison Place campus at 210 Walnut Street invites entrepreneurs, businesses, and creatives to an open house to explore how the facility can help them move their enterprises to the next level. The campus is home to more than 65 businesses, according to Edla Colora, facilities manager, and guided tours will be available. At 480,000 total square feet, Harrison Place provides space for offices, creative studios, manufacturing and retail, and a licensed commissary, with Colora providing support with marketing and periodic group business seminars. Colora said more office and manufacturing space will be available toward the end of the year when Trek Incorporated relocates out of the area. At Harrison Place, Bruning said, quoting, "We have the loading docks we didn't have before, we have freight elevators, and I don't have the hassle of worrying about maintenance." Skipping some of the article, but going on to another occupant of Harrison Place. Another sewer, Elizabeth Viciano of Betsy Ross Costumes and Vintage Clothing, came to the incubator for different reasons. After running a retail party costume store in Clarence for years, Viciano's industry suddenly saw a wave of competition in the early 2000s, she said. A wave of competition. In the early 2000s, she said, Amazon entered the Halloween celebration market. You had to be able to adapt, Viciano said. The main thing we could offer was service. What killed us were the spirit stores in 2010. They purposely leased spaces near independent stores. Eventually, Viciano conceded that consumers had moved to shopping online. She said she decided, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. I went on eBay. I'm selling all over the world now. Viciano decided to move her considerable inventory to Harrison Place, where she can still receive the occasional personal buyer. I'm much happier now than I was in retail, she said. I can make my own hours. Viciano said she has seen a wave of demand for colonial-era costumes as the nation's 250th anniversary celebrations roll out. Recently, 2 colonial men's costumes sold in a day, and the season for her vintage prom dresses is beginning. Betsy Ross costumes and vintage clothing can be found on eBay at Aunt B's Attic and on Etsy at auntbsattic.etsy.com. That B is just the letter B. So Aunt B's Attic on eBay, and on Etsy it's all one word, Aunt B's Attic with B spelled B-E-E-Z. So AUNTBEEZATTIC, but that was all one word, .etsy.com. About rabies vaccines. From the Saturday and Sunday, May 1 and 2 issue of the Union-Sun Journal. An earlier start this year to rabies vaccine efforts. Bait to be dropped around Niagara County, Western New York, starting next week. The U.S. Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services program will begin a spring distribution of oral rabies vaccine baits around Niagara County and Western New York. The effort is part of a nationwide cooperative program to prevent the spread of raccoon rabies in the eastern United States. While Wildlife Services typically conducts annual baiting in late summer, this spring distribution is intended to strengthen regional rabies prevention. Baiting will occur through aerial distribution using helicopters and low-flying fixed-wing aircraft, and ground baiting by hand in select areas. Distribution is weather-dependent and may be adjusted due to inclement conditions. Helicopter operations are scheduled for Monday through May 10th and will distribute bait across the core urban areas of Buffalo and Niagara Falls. Fixed-wing aircraft operations are scheduled for May 18th through the 25th and will distribute bait across surrounding suburban and rural areas operating from Jamestown. Ground baiting will also take place in the cities of Buffalo and Niagara Falls, with approximately 200 bait stations deployed in Niagara Falls. Raccoons are vaccinated against rabies when they eat the wildlife rabies vaccine that is contained in the baits. Quoting, during the baiting period, residents may see and hear low-flying aircraft over Niagara County and may observe staff distributing green packets by hand or vehicle in Niagara Falls neighborhoods, end quote, said Scott Ecker, Environmental Health Director. The baits are about the size of a matchbox and are comprised of vegetable shortening, wax, icing sugar, vegetable oil, and flavoring. The baits are not harmful to humans or pets, however, they should not be handled. If baits are found in areas where children or pets play, they may be moved using gloves or a plastic bag. Quoting, rabies is a fatal but preventable viral disease that can be spread to people and pets through bites or scratches from infected animals such as raccoons, skunks, and bats, said Public Health Director Dr. Fauzia Khan. Keeping pets up to date on rabies vaccination is not only required by New York state law, but one of the most important steps residents can take to protect their families. The Niagara County Department of Health offers free rabies clinics 5 times a year. The next clinic will be held from 9 a.m. to noon on June 6th at Hyde Park Centennial Pavilion, 911 Robbins Drive, Niagara Falls. Registration is required for rabies vaccination clinics and opens on the first business day of the week of the clinic. For a complete rabies clinic schedule, visit www.niagaracounty.gov/rabies-clinic. Another Nature article, otters making a comeback in western New York. Richard Moss. River otters are becoming so prevalent in New York State that some officials are wondering whether to allow trapping of the species again. Whether or not trapping is allowed is a separate and controversial discussion, but the mere fact that the question is being asked is a good marker for how successful the river otter reintroduction program has been in the state, Tom Snyder of the Seneca Park Zoo and Zoo Society said Saturday during a presentation on the species at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge. River otters were once very prevalent in this area, but a combination of the fur trade, especially in the 1800s, and the Industrial Revolution with its attendant pollution, decimated the population in the United States. And because we're at the end of our time, I'll cut that article off there. If you would like to hear the rest of it, it is from the May 1st and 2nd newspaper, and you can hear the rest by calling Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 716-821-5555, and staff will be happy to read the remainder of the article to you.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 7 o'clock, we got the Niagara Falls Review, and at 8 o'clock, we have the Off-Duty from the Wall Street Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.